I've probably done the best part of 100 albums, I'd say, in the last, well, since the late 60s. Most recently, obviously I've been working with Fleming, and prior to that, I was working with Paul Weller. Was the biggest thing of those 2 years ago. I did his album Heliocentric, did 5 tracks on that with a biggish orchestra. Since that, in the last, sort of this year and last year, I've been working with Linda Thompson, Richard Thompson's ex-wife. She's got a new album out where I arranged the track by Loudon Wainwright's son, Rufus Wainwright, written it. I also worked on an album called Shining Bright, which is, there used to be a very famous folk group in the UK back in the late 50s, early 60s called the Watersons. And one of them died, and what they've done is recorded some of the lyrics that she'd written, but with music written by other folk artists. And so I did some tracks with Martin Carthy, who was a hero of mine when I was at school. He's a really old sort of folk singer. I still, predominantly, most of the work I do is in folk rather than rock. But really, if you want to go back, sort of, I worked quite a bit with, in the 80s with Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe. Going sort of further back, well, actually more recently, in the last 5 years, I've been working with a duo in the UK called Ben and Jason. They're not well known at all, but they're brilliant songwriters, and I quite enjoy doing stuff with them. I work in another job. There's the famous motto they say in the 70s, don't give up your day job.
Okay. And what is your day job?
I work in a market research job. Funnily enough, just the same as Rutger. In fact, I know his company well, and he knows my company well. Okay. And I've been doing that, gosh, since 1979.
Okay, and why did you start with that?
Because I got married and got a mortgage. And I was solely living off music through the 70s. Yeah. But then, I mean, in the 70s, I used to, I arranged a lot for a band in England called the Strawbs, who are probably only known for a hit Part of the Union and things like that. But I arranged 6 or 7 albums with them. And then Rick Wakeman left them and went to Yes just before a big American tour. And so I went on tour with them just because I knew the stuff, not because I'm a good keyboard, but I mean, I managed the keyboard parts. So I was touring with them for a couple of years. And then this is the late 70s, so if you imagine, when I got back, you'd had suddenly punk, synthesizers, disco. I'd been aware and other arrangers had come along, and there was a lot less work for orchestrators and arrangers. It's increased again more sort of through the 80s and 90s, but it really dropped away in the 70s. Well, with Fleming, they've been really good because, well, I got to know them through, I did a Nick Drake concert at the Paradiso the year before last, and Jiggle was there, and he asked me if I would work with them. On Starry Night, as it turned out. But instead of, some people would just send you the tape and say, this is the song, stick strings on it. They said, come over, and Warner Brothers as well are very good to them, and they said, will you come over? And come in the studio when they're doing the rhythm track, when they're doing the guitars, when they're doing the vocals. So you hear the song building up and you see the way they're thinking. And that makes it much easier when you go away. You know, then I go back to England with the CD of the basic track, the guitars, bass, drums and things like that, and then write the arrangement at home. But at least then I feel more confident that I'm on the same wavelength as they are, because I've been here with them, listening to what they're doing and discussed it. You know. Well, there's lots. I mean, I'm a bit, what they might say, a Luddite. I'm a bit old-fashioned. I mean, I studied classical music in the 60s. I read music at Cambridge University, and I was very much classical music. I still write with manuscript paper at a table, not as an instrument. I write like, you know, like, I was going to say like Beethoven, but nowhere near as good as Beethoven in the same way. And I'm not deaf, but I write in that way. And then I give my parts to a copyist who then programs it onto Sibelius on a computer and prints off the parts for me. But I don't write. But these days, a lot of musicians and arrangers use computer systems for arranging, and it will more or less do the arrangement for you. But there's one thing I've always been very wary of. If you write arrangements at an instrument, you will never write anything better than you play the piano. Do you see what I mean? If you're doing it there. Whereas if you just listen to it, you'll write things that you couldn't possibly play on the piano. And it also means, for example, here on the score today, we've got the double bass there, we've got the first violin there, and we've got lots of other things going on. Well, you can even play it with your nose if you're going to. So I write very much like classical musicians do, at manuscript paper.
Oh, so you just hear it?
Hear it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very strange because, I mean, as I say, I think I arrange much better now than I did for Nick Drake, but I have to say I owe him a huge debt because the boys, Fleming, chose me because of Nick Drake. They liked Nick's stuff. Paul Weller picked me because of Nick Drake. Elvis Costello liked Nick Drake. Most of the named people who've worked with me have done it because of the work I did with Nick. So I have to, you know, I'm really grateful that I ever got the chance to do that. But, you know, the working with Nick was just totally by accident. I was a student exactly the same age as him, and he knew that I'd been in a pop group on television as well as studying classical music, and just came and said, would you write some strings for my songs so we can do live gigs? It wasn't for record at all. It was, at that point, all I thought was we were going to be doing live gigs, which we did. I had my own little string orchestra of students at Cambridge, and we used to go and do balls and dances and things like that with Nick playing and doing the arrangements.
So it was your lucky break then?
Well, it was, yes, it was. But I mean, as you just said, I mean, Nick, as you know, wasn't successful in his lifetime at all.
True, yeah.
But even at the beginning of the 70s, he was a musician's musician. Lots of musicians knew about him. And he's sort of, since the late 70s, early 80s, there have been sort of periods when it goes up and comes down. But I mean, he's selling by the truckload now. But I mean, what has helped it a lot is Volkswagen in America picked Pink Moon as the theme music to the adverts for the Golf. I believe that something off of Brighter Later is currently the theme music to France Telecom advertising in France. I think that's just about to happen. And about 10 years ago, a TV series started in the UK called Heartbeat. It's a sort of soap opera type thing, but it's about a village in the north of England in the 1960s. And whenever anything serious happened, like the house burnt down and someone was killed or a dog got shot or something like that, they finished up playing Way to Blue or Days Down or Fruit Tree. And those albums all went gold. I think one even went platinum in the UK. Very middle of the road. There were compilations of 60s records, but Nick was on all of those. And so then he started to get heard by a much broader public, you know, not just sort of much more, almost middle of the road sort of people who were getting to hear him, yeah. No, it doesn't. It does if people think that's... I get a bit pissed off with people who think that's all I did. Yeah, that's possibly, you know, there's been... But I mean, I'm perfectly happy to admit that I owe a huge debt to Nick, that none of this would have happened if I hadn't... I mean, I was planning on being a schoolmaster and teaching music, that's what I...
So but this job is better now?
Sorry?
This job is better now?
Oh yes, so the one I do is it's a lot better, yeah.
Okay. Do you miss Nick?
Yes, I do actually. It's a long time ago now, but when he first died, I missed him incredibly because, and I think a lot of, to tell you the truth, I thought, you know, I was a bit angry because I thought, what am I going to do now? You know, because I was expecting to be getting on with more work with Nick. So yeah, it was quite confusing then, but it's a long time ago now, really. So, I mean, I still keep in touch with his sister, Gabrielle, and if people are doing films or documentaries about him, I'll gladly take part. I mean, the best film of Nick was made by a Dutch film crew year before.
What's it called?
A Skin Too Few, Jeroen Bergfans. Beautiful film. And he caught the atmosphere of England better than any English person has ever caught it when they've tried to make things about it.
Because he can look from the outside.
Exactly, he looks from the outside. I thought it was a brilliant film, I really did. I think that if you listened to... a lot of people put him in the same bag as Tim Buckley. Put him in the same bag as people who are dead. Jim Croce, all of that sort of era. But I say, even in addition to that, if you listen to Jim Webb, I think of songwriters from that time. If you listen to it now, you know it was written in the late 60s, early 70s. If somebody who'd never heard of Nick, I would have put on 5 League Left, Brighter Later or Pink Moon and say to them, this album came out last year, I don't think they would doubt me.
Yeah, maybe Brighter Later, maybe, because when I listen to Brighter Later, I think, well, maybe it's a bit dated, I don't know. But
well, that's simply because Brighter Later was a conscious attempt to make a commercial album. I mean, Nick wanted it to be commercial, and so we were listening to Pet Sounds, trying to get it more, get a little more upbeat and brass, things like that. But at the same time, it has still got on it Northern Sky and things like that, which, I mean, is the greatest love song ever written, you know, sort of thing. And so I think that's the thing about it. It's timeless. And also, all young men go through that period of angst and soul-searching and all. And, well, anyway, particularly the sort of student type of people who sort of want to ask questions about themselves. And I think there will always be that generation of people ready to listen to Nick's stuff because of that.